What's up everybody, I'm Gooshy, and we're doing this. I've been hearing a lot of debate on which sword stance is the best, so I figured we'd settle this debate once and for all, and test all of them. So in this video, we'll be going over all the sword stances, and finding out the differences between their base damages, as well as with their mastery perks, or other perks like Way of the Flame, or skills from the samurai like Explosive Blade. Along with the damage numbers, we'll take into account other factors as well, such as resolve and type matchups, to finally know which sword stance is the best and ideal for the situation you're in. As a side note, if you guys don't have a raid team, come join our Discord, which I'll link down below in the description, as we have an LFG going on to help you guys find more people to play with, or to just talk about all things Ghost of Tsushima. With that, let's get started. So first, we'll start off with the Wind Katana. This has no mastery perk on it, and has no properties that increase melee damage. We'll test this by going over two of their moves, the triangle, 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 which I'll just be calling the heavy combo, and second is the heavy special, which is the typhoon kick. The enemies that we'll be testing this with are enemies that are not matching the stance's specialty, because unlike the health, which sections its health into multiple bars to more accurately measure how much damage you're doing, the white bar above, or the enemy's guard, is not sectioned off and can differ between enemy to enemy. Since you do more damage while the enemy's guard is down, we'll try to keep the enemy's guard up at all times to get a more consistent damage number to their health. Alright, so with the Wind Stance heavy combo, it does a little bit less than 3 bars of damage. Its heavy special, Typhoon Kick, launches enemies into the air, which doesn't do that much damage outright, but can be used to follow up some damage with a heavy combo. And so with that, it does around 4 bars of damage. And so this is the main selling point of the Wind Stance. Getting that CC and knockdown is super helpful for taking down lower tiered enemies. Next stance is the Stone Stance. Again, we have no properties that increase melee damage, and its heavy combo does exactly 3 bars of damage. Next, we'll look at its Piercing Strikes, and this move is pretty unique because, as its name suggests, this attack does pierce damage, which means it goes through the enemy's guard and does damage directly to the enemy's health. As a note, this only works for non-shielded enemies. For shields, it will negate all damage from Piercing Strike. However, if this move does hit, it will do almost 5 bars of damage. Next, we'll test the Moon Katana. Its heavy combo does a little bit more than 3 bars of damage. And then its heavy special, the Spinning Strike, does around 1.5 bars of damage, which can then be followed up by a heavy combo. Finally, we'll take a look at the Water Stance. Again, no melee boosters. Its heavy combo does little less than 3 bars of damage. And its heavy special, Surging Strikes, is a little more than 3.5 bars of damage. Next, we'll look at the mastery perks for all of the stances. So, with Moon Master, you get increased stagger damage and causes knockdown. Again, this is the main selling point of the Wind Stance, but in higher level activities, you can't knock down Oni. And because of that, I'd put it as the worst stance to use. Next is the Stone Katana with the Stone Master perk. With this perk, all heavy attacks have an increased speed, and the final attack does extra damage. With this, it does almost 5 bars of damage. But again, if you're going up against a shield, the heavy special and the heavy combo both do very little damage. Next, we'll talk about the Moon Master perk. With this, Spinning Strike can combo 3 times, with the final attack doing increased damage. So we'll use that special, and it does a little bit more than 4 bars of damage. The best part of Spinning Strike is that it's an AoE effect, and can hit multiple enemies at once. With that, you could double or even triple your damage. Finally, we'll look at the Water Master. This states that when using Surging Strikes, your damage will increase with each attack. So we'll test that out, and it does a little bit less than 4 bars of damage. With that so far just taking straight up damage numbers, the Moon Master perk does the most single target damage, with the possibility of hitting even more to double that. I also wanted to mention another thing because I think it's pretty important. If we are measuring DPS or damage per second, a thing to note is that Water Stance's Surging Strikes takes around 2/3 the time as the Moon Stance's Spinning Strikes. So while the Moon Stance does the best damage throughout one combo, as time goes on, since Surging Strikes takes less time, it can get more damage in. Next, I wanted to go over different perks such as Way of the Flame. So here we are with the Stone Stance with Way of the Flame. And after we get our heavy special in, and after the bird damage ticks down, we can see it does almost 7 bars of damage, which kind of shows that in the right situations, the Stone Stance could be pretty good. Next, I'll test it with the Water Stance, and again, it does a little bit less than 7 bars of damage. This is without any status modifiers. That'll boost damage or duration, so Way of the Flame could be a really good option to burst down enemies. However, there is the downside. That Way of the Flame doesn't last long and is on a pretty decent cooldown. Alright, next thing we'll test is the Explosive Blade on the Samurai. I've had a couple of people mention this, so I wanted to try this out. Again, we're using Water Stance, and with this it does a little bit more than 5 bars of damage. This gives it an increase of 1 bar of damage, but honestly I don't think it's worth giving it Spirit Pull, as that's your main source of healing and tankiness as a Samurai. Alright, finally, we're going to go over some Legendaries. I know I placed most of them pretty low on my Legendary tier list, and a lot of you guys told me to retry them, so I did testing on them. First up is Masamune's Edge. Since we already have our damage numbers for Water Mastery, we can add 20% to that, which will only give us an extra 0.8 bars of damage. So with the Water Master being at less than 4 bars of damage, with Masamune's Edge giving you that 20% chance at double damage, you'll only get around 4.5 to maybe 5 bars of damage. Personally, I don't really like rolling the odds and I'd like consistent damage, so sorry guys, I'm gonna leave this pretty low in the list. Next up we have the Demon Cutter, and the major selling point of this weapon is that 30% chance to throw nearby enemies. Other than that, a simple epic could do the same job. And after testing, again I'd still leave Demon Cutter lower on the list. As we all get into higher level activities like Nightmare and even the Raid, we're going to be facing more and more Oni. And similar to the Wind Stance Master perk, which can knock down enemies, this doesn't apply to Oni. I've tried it in the story, against Oni Brutes, against Tengu, and even in survival when I'm surrounded by a bunch of Oni. And every time this throw perk procced, it never threw an Oni. It would throw other enemies, but again, not the Oni. So this is still good during lower level activities, but again, in higher level activities, the major selling point of this weapon does not work. So I had another comment that said instead of using it for the throw effect, that burst of damage could be used to gain a bunch of resolve. So I tested that, but I couldn't get a definitive answer of if it really does give you more resolve. In this example, you could see the difference between the resolve gains from a normal parry, which breaks the enemy's guard, and when the perk procs. And as far as I can tell, there's no noticeable difference, but if there is, it might be so incremental. So let me know in the comment section down below if you guys experience something different. And this leads up to our next test, which is measuring how much resolve that you get from the different stances. Especially if you're not focusing on straight up melee damage, but instead gaining your ultimate as quick as possible, this might make you switch stances. So the way that resolve gains works is that it's not by the damage dealt, but the amount of hits that you get in. So with the Water Stance special, doing an extra 5 hits, you do get a little bit more resolve, but I do think that some of the perks that we can get on our different weapons will make more of an impact on resolve gains. Finally, the last thing that might sway your decision on a certain stance is type matchups. We all know that we do more stagger damage if we're matching the correct stance to the corresponding enemy type. So if we take Nightmare activities, the most common Oni enemy are the Brutes and the Oni Spearmen. We've already counted out Wind Stance, so to take out the Brutes faster, Moon Stance is definitely the best option. So to summarize everything up, Way of the Flame will do the most burst damage with 7 bars of damage. Moon Master's Spinning Strike does the most consistent damage at a little bit more than 4 bars of damage, with the possibility of doubling that as you hit more than one enemy. If you're focusing on resolve gains, Water Mastery will give you the most single target resolve gains, but again, if you're using Moon Stance and hitting multiple enemies, you have the potential of getting more resolve. And finally, with higher level activities, because we're facing a lot of Brutes, Moon Stance is again one of the better options. And so with that wraps everything up on all the sword stances and which one's the best in each situation. I hope that you guys found this helpful. As always, thank you guys for watching. Hope to catch you in the next one, and GG.